Hey everybody, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer, Tucker Sennett, joining you here today on Thursday, October 2nd, game week against Campbell, week 6. NC State is trying to bounce back from back-to-back losses against Duke and Virginia Tech. Obviously, last weekend was a disappointing loss for the Wolfpack. They'll be looking to correct some issues, which I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to be talking about the four things that NC State needs to improve or show improvement in going into this Campbell game, or in this Campbell game, going into this unbelievably difficult stretch that they have coming up with games against Notre Dame, Miami, Pitt, Florida State, and Georgia Tech. There's a lot coming down the pipe. So NC State's going to need to correct some things for sure in this Campbell game and use it as a building block for the rest of the season and get some of these guys who are playing as fill-ins for the mounting injuries, get them some reps, get them some experience, get them up to speed in the scheme if they need to sort of catch up. And this is a huge opportunity to do that with a FCS opponent that's really off to a poor start in 2025. So my first thing I think NC State needs to improve this week is the run blocking and just the run game overall. Really struggled against Virginia Tech. Only ran for 59 yards, even though they have NC State has the ACC's leading rusher in Hollywood Smothers, who is kind of running laps statistically around the other running backs in this conference. His usage is pretty high, but his yards per carry is also quite high. Jamari Taylor of Virginia comes in at second, and his numbers are pretty. They're kind of buoyed by the explosive performance against NC State in that game that the Wolfpack was able to escape with a win. Um, but overall, Smothers is sort of feeling the the Ashton Genty effect in that he's not getting a lot of yards. He's not getting a lot of room to run, so many of his yards are coming after contact. And this offensive line really struggled in run blocking, according to Pro Football Focus, in that Virginia Tech game. Only Jalen Grant finished with a PFF run blocking score above 65. They have plugged in Spike Souls at right guard, and it looks like that's going to be his job the rest of the season. So that's something to look out for because he is a true freshman, still learning the role. But clearly, they're more confident in him than the other options that they had there, and guys like Yusuf Mugerbil and Kamen Smith and Val Erickson. So they're going to roll with the freshman who, had huge expectations, but is still a true freshman and still not the biggest guy for his position. So that'll be certainly something it'll be they'll have to find ways to hide his deficiencies against these power conference opponents coming up. But Campbell could be a good building block for him, could be a good building block for this rushing attack, and just getting Smothers back on track and maybe even getting Duke Scott more involved in the run game. The second area of improvement that is critical for NC State is going to be the missed tackles. The missed tackles defensively have been a disaster, especially in the past couple weeks. Now, the Duke game, they only missed 7 tackles, but they were timely and allowed Duke to continue drives. And ultimately, the game ended on a horrible missed tackle and an explosive run. Two things that Dave Doran is very tired of seeing for this NC State team, and two things that have probably cost NC State a pair of wins here in the last couple of weeks because the offense really, there've been issues, but it hasn't been the main problem. The main problem has been this defense not being able to limit these explosive plays on the ground. The team has 21 missed tackles in the last 2 games and 48 on the season. They missed 14 tackles against Virginia Tech. That is a abysmal number. Um, those explosive plays are just spell doom for this defense. And Now they're going to be playing with a lot of backups, a lot of reserve players, a lot of freshmen and redshirt freshmen. You know, you lost Brody Barnhart in the last game, not looking like he's going to play this weekend. NC State hasn't released a depth chart, but they did release some nuggets in the game notes that came out, and it looks like Sean Brown is going to miss the Campbell game. My guess is that's not a long-term injury and it's kind of more precautionary and it gives an opportunity for the coaching staff to see some of these younger players like Kevon Carter and LaCorian Hodge at linebacker. It also gives them an opportunity to see kind of what they got with these guys because Sean Brown has struggled with the tackling. Caden Fordham will be healthy, but he's, you know, those guys have had some issues finishing tackles. The safeties have had some serious issues finishing tackles. And now we're going to see Zach Myers at safety alongside probably Ronnie Royal, who has kind of been the worst tackler on the team. Actually, he has factually, I believe he has the most missed tackles on the roster. But it'll be interesting to see how these depth linebackers perform because Brown, you know, has shown some issues in that transition from safety to linebacker, finishing tackles and in pass coverage. Those have been problems, but um, he is the team's leading tackler, so he will be missed in that sense. But he's always there. It's just about finishing, and it hasn't happened super well so far this year. So we'll see some younger guys this weekend, and Dave Doran, I'm sure, is intrigued by what they might bring to the table moving forward. And it's good to see what you've got if you're NC State. You know, they're obviously not going to admit defeat on this season, but you know the opportunities for wins are pretty limited the rest of the way, depending on you know how things shake out. So you might as well start building for the future and get these guys some playing time so that they're ready to take the next step either later this season or next season. My third area of improvement, there needs to be more consistency in the passing game. What I mean by that is it's sort of been a up and down adventure for CJ Bailey through the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. You know, he was flying high in those first 3 games, then had the turnover meltdown against Duke, some of which weren't his fault entirely, but you know, you can't be turning the ball over 4 times and expect to win football games. And then the Virginia Tech game was not really his fault, but the offensive line was really poor in pass protection as a unit. Allowed Bailey to be sacked 4 times in the first half of that game and 5 times overall. So a really rough outing for that group in this game. They'll look to bounce back, but it's you got to get Bailey comfortable again in this game against Campbell. They're not going to. They have one player with more than a sack, and he's a linebacker, so you're not going to see much from this defensive line. They'll probably throw some unique looks at the Wolfpack to try and get them off schedule and make things weird, but I just don't see much of a challenge from them. So it's a great opportunity to get more receivers involved, maybe get Teddy Hoffman some more confidence after he had a couple rough games in a row, and just sort of get this passing game back where it was and prove that put some stuff on tape that's going to scare teams moving forward. Finally, the last thing is something that Doran has talked a lot about throughout the season, and that's playing a clean game. The penalties have cost NC State in critical moments, and you know, they've had chances to get off the field and given them up with penalties. This also, for me, playing clean also stems to, you know, getting off the field in situations where you really should. So third and longs, you know, converting those plays, and then also on offense, fourth and short or third and short, making sure you get that yard and keep those drives going. That's all part of playing a clean game. And then of course, clean operations on kicks and special teams. NC State has sort of had some adventures kicking the football this year. So it'll be important for Kanoa Vincent to sort of find some confidence. They seem to have Caden Noonkester firing on all cylinders again, so that's a good sign for the Wolfpack special teams moving forward. But playing a clean game is going to be critical against Campbell. You can't afford to be making silly mistakes because that's just not going to bode well for a matchup against Notre Dame the following week. So those are the four areas that I think NC State needs to improve against Campbell to sort of win back the fan base and also build some confidence going into this brutal stretch. For more content, you can follow my social media at Senate Tucker on X. You can follow the website on X at Wolfpack on SI. You can find daily episodes of the NC State Insider podcast on the Sports Videos on SI YouTube channel. And as always, thanks for tuning in.